Divrei Torah tonight should be Lili Nishmas, David ben Shmuel, from Shav It's already an ancient custom. The Rambam already brings it in Hilchos Tefillah that we always read Parshas Devarim before Tisha B'Av. And the Parshas Devarim is Shabbos Chazon. That has always been the case for centuries, ever since we started finishing the laning on an annual cycle. Once upon a time, I used to do it once every 3 years, but it's been the minhag since we've been on the annual cycle. And of course, Halo Davar is something to look into. The parasha, the Sefer, opens up Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe. Something which it doesn't say anywhere else, and it breaks with the general, structure of when a parsha begins in Chumash. It says Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor, and there's no such sentence in the whole Sefer Devarim. It's Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe, and the whole thing is set up as it's a Moshe Rabbeinu's monologue. So the Medrash Tanchuma, right there on the spot, points out a very interesting thing. All right, it says, Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu spoke. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu first met by the Sneh, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Lo ish Devarim Anochi, not a man of words. And over here it's Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe. So it says the Medrash, Marpeh Loshen Eitz Chaim, brings the pasuk. Right, the Eitz Chaim heals the tongue. That refers to the Torah. That Moshe Rabbeinu, he was originally Lo ish Devarim Anochi, wasn't a man of words. But Mishezacha l'Torah, Nisrape l'Shoinoi, V'nase ish Devarim. Once he was Zecha the Torah, now, his tongue got healed, and now he's an ish Devarim. Mishezacha l'Torah. We're now, at the end, this is 6 weeks before he died. The Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe, so the pasuk goes on, was on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. And he died on Zion Adar. So, for the 40 years, right? For 40 years, and Matan Torah was 50 days after they left Mitzrayim. This is called Misha Zocha L'Torah Nisrape L'Shono V'Nase Ish Devarim. What's pshat? All right, the Torah was given 40 years earlier. All right, the idea is like this. There's a shift over here that. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu, speaks through Moshe Rabbeinu, it's Mamash Shechina Medabers Bitoch Grono. It's not Moshe Rabbeinu's words; it's the Shechina's words. So whatever it sounded like, with his speech impediment that Kayadua he had. And Aaron had to be Aaron Achicha Yen V'yecha, but Ech Shelo Yeh. Right, the words that Moshe Rabbeinu speaks are the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. He's saying over HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. So even though Torah was given, but it's all that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shechina Medaberes Bitoch Grono. This is Eila HaDvarim Asher Diber Moshe. That for the first 40 years in the desert and the first 4 Chumashim, Moshe Rabbeinu is representing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These are Moshe Rabbeinu's, as it were, Chidushei Torah. Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe. And that's what the Gemara says in the Megillah, Daf Lamed Beis, Tochachos Shebamishna Torah Moshe Mipi Atzmo Kasvan. Right, he wrote the Tochacha. It's his words, and that's why that resolves the contradiction that in the Tochacha of Bechukosai. So one place it says the Eretz is like Barzo, and the Shemayim Zachosh. The other way it's inverted. Tochas Shebishtar Moshe Mipi Atzmo and Kasvav, and he inverted it to be Meiko on Am Yisrael. But of course, let's get this straight. HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him, right, to write what he said in the Torah scroll. Moshe Rabbeinu would not chas v'shalom put anything in the Sefer Torah. Shelo al pi adibur, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him. That which you said right. That which you said right. That the pshat is like this. That even though Torah was given 40 years earlier, but ein adam omed al das rabo ad arboim shana. There's a whole process of absorption, and coming 40 years later, the Torah gets absorbed. So if Torah says about Am Yisrael, Rosh Hashem Einaimos was nice for Lev Ladas Adayom Azem Mikan Sheradam Omed Al Das Rabo Ad Arbaim Shana, and that's Klal Yisrael learning from Moshe Rabbeinu. It's certainly true of Moshe Rabbeinu learning from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Right, 40 years later, it gets absorbed. It becomes internalized. It becomes a part of the person, and now Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking his own Divrei Torah. Right? Until now he's speaking, and so until now Moshe mitzad atzmo is still lo ish dvarim anochi. He's not saying his own words. He's saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words. Right? From Sefer Devarim onwards, right, the last 6 weeks of his life, he's zocheh that he is saying his own chidushei Torah, and HaKadosh will command him. Al pia dibor, that which you said, right. Moshe didn't chas v'shalom put anything al das atzmo in the Sefer Torah. It's all al pia dibor, whatever got written in, but incorporated in the scrolls. And this shift really is keneged the shift that there is from Torah Shebechsav to Torah Shebaal Peh. That even though everything originates from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all from God, right? But the Torah Shebechsav forever remains the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's the words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Navi, and that gets written in the scroll. Whereas the Torah Shebaal Peh, even though it originates from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's lefi our understanding. Besod lo b'shamayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave, the Torah lefi how Am Yisrael would understand it and interpret it. So even though if it starts from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're kinda, and that's why, in the lashon of the Torah Shebechsav, whether it's Chumash, right, Zeh Adar Shetziva Hashem, or in the lashon of the Navi, Kol Amar Hashem, right? This is what Hashem said, right? The Torah Shebaal Peh is Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Meir Omer. It's their own words. So even though the koach and the authorization and the capacity all comes originally min hashamayim, but it's mamish gifted to Am Yisrael, and it becomes Am Yisrael's own. So it could be said like this, that Sefer Devarim, which is called Mishnah Torah, is a prelude for a subsequent work called the Mishnah of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Right, and it works out this way, min hashamayim, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu, the topic that he opens up with is Ho Moshe be'eres haTorah azos. So everyone knows the Rashi, be'eres haTorah azos b'shivim loshen. Now it's who there needed to hear the Torah in French, right? No French people there, right? That's the question, right? Yeah. That's the question, right? But b'shivim loshen, that it was laying down a precursor that Torah Shebaal Peh was going to be, was going to expand in the Golus under the different shivim umos. So of course in Bavel, and that's why the Talmud Bavli is in Aramaic, and and the Bali Tosfos, Mistama, they spoke the original Yiddish, and the Rashba and the Ramban spoke Ladino, and Reb Chaim spoke Yiddish, and that which all these things are in Lashon HaKodesh somewhat, because that was a language that they published in. So when you put it in book form, so book form follows the pattern of Torah Shebechsav. Matter of fact, the days of the Mishnah, what language did they speak? Aramaic. Mefurish, the Mishnayos and Ksuvas of all the Lashonos that were in the Ksuva, it's all Aramaic. In this, what? The Mishnayos are Hebrew, but the people didn't speak Hebrew. The people spoke Aramaic. As you see from the Lashon of the Shtoros brought down in the Mishnayos and Ksuvas and in Gittin, it was all written in Aramaic. It was the language that they published in. Just like Reb Chaim said Shir in Yiddish, they published in Rabbinic Hebrew. That's right, because the language of the book is Lashon HaKodesh, but the language in which the Torah Shebaal Peh was originally said over and was nischadish, right, is whatever language they spoke, right? Because it's Baal Peh, so it was in whatever language was spoken in that Ummah, right? But when it becomes v'nichtav ala sefer, so it follows the language of somewhat pattern after the lashon of the Torah Shebechsav. Right? Now the Gemara itself is not b'lashon HaKodesh because the Gemara is not a book. The Gemara is built as a commentary around Mishnah. It's not a book in its own right. The Mishnah was the first time that the Torah Shebaal Peh became like a book in its own right. Until the Mishnah, the Torah Shebaal Peh was built around Chumash. The type of material that we have in the Safra, the Sifrei, the Mechilta, is the original form of the Torah Shebaal Peh, that the base was a Chumash, was built around Chumash. Came Rabbeinu HaKadosh, so the Torah Shebaal Peh shouldn't be forgotten. So to have it, built around Chumash leaves it too loose and it gets forgotten. So he made the Yesodis of Torah Shebaal Peh a book in its own right, and that's the Mishnah. And if Rabbeinu HaKadosh would have done that, we would have forgotten the Torah Shebaal Peh. right? And a precursor for that was the Mishnah Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's a sefer from the Chumash, right? But it has Torah SheBaal Peh characteristics to it, and that was about to become necessary, right? Because Moshe Beres Torah Zos. The simplest pshat, albeit it's not the pshat of Rashi, but it says, the Rambam says in his Hakdam Rizroim, Moshe Rabbeinu is warning Am Yisrael, in 6 weeks, I'm gone. This is the last opportunity. Any shal you have, any suffix you have 6 weeks to come to me and I'll explain it to you because I'm leaving. What happened after Moshe Rabbeinu left? So the Gemara says in Tmura, they came to Yoshua. They forgot, thousands and thousands of halachas. Right, Yoshua, ask HaKadosh, I'm not allowed to, right? Lo b'shamayim mi'elo mitzvahs ein navi rashi chadish davar. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one human being in history that could paskin al pi adibur. And he could say imdu v'eshma ma'yitzav Hashem lachem. But after he leaves, right, you got to work with the Torah SheBaal Peh, figure it out. And in Hechzirim Asnil ben Knaz bepilpulo. Asnil ben Knaz with the koch of pilpul, which is the kochos of the Torah SheBaal Peh, is how it was reconstructed. In the words of the Rambam right over there in Akdama Dezroim, Mashiyasu Ravina v'Ravashi hu Mashiyasu Yoshua v'Pinchas. From the time Moshe Rabbeinu is Histalkos, Yoshua and Pinchas have to do the same thing as Ravina and Ravashi, it being Poshet any suffix. And it was necessary because we're not going to be able to get things bin nevuah. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one man licensed in history to get Torah bin nevuah, and nevuah means you see it. Right? He could mamish see it, so and just like he could see it, that's why it also gets inscribed in the Torah scroll, black and white, becomes the visible Torah, like the Torah Shebachsav, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu is going to leave, and also just like during these 6 weeks, right, he was dealing with all the shilas because time is running out. He was also giving over to Am Yisrael the koach of Torah SheBaal Peh. Yes, to give us the power to manage without him. They were going to be blind. We're not going to see the emes the way Moshe Rabbeinu was. By him it says, Utmunas Hashem Yabit. Like a mamish seed, Bas Baklara Meira, we're going to be denied that. Right? And we got to work with the Torah SheBaal Peh. It's this between working with your eyes versus working with your ears. Eyes you see, that's the Navi sees, and that's why wherever the Navi sees becomes Torah Shebachsav. Right? Working with your ears, that's Torah SheBaal Peh. So the good Sefer Yetzirah says regarding the month of Av, every, the Yud Beis Putos, the 12 letters of the Aleph Beis that have no kefil, right? They are connected to 12 months of the year. So it says about the month of Av, Himlich Ois Tes B'Shmiya. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, coronated the letter Tes with the power of hearing. That's what reigns in the month of Av. So what's Pshat? So the Reb Tzadok says that the Gemara says in Baba Kama, Haroa tes b'chalomo simin yofe hu lo, ho v'pasach bo kosav l'tova. Someone who sees the letter tes in a dream, that's a good sign. Because the first time we find tes in the Torah is in the word tov, vayal ki misa or ki tov. What happened with that or ki tov? Or ki tov was nignas. Nignas l'asir lava l'tzadikim v'la'amole Torah SheBaal Peh. The Gerson some Chazals, it was hidden for the tzadikim and for those who toil in Torah SheBaal Peh. So nifla ma'od, right? We know that Tisha B'av is destined to become a Yom Tov. It's not just payback for all that we suffered. It was always meant to be a Yom Tov, right? It was always meant to be a Yom Tov. We ruined that. My Rebbe Moshe Shapiro, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kodesh V'Rocha, told us in Shir. Right, in Lashon HaKodesh, when you double the last letters, that implies smallness. Like katan is small. Ktantan, that's very small. Right? That's also he explained to us at that time. That's why in Lashon HaKodesh we call the getchkas, the idols, Elilim. Elil was like little God. We're making fun of it. Right? Kel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elil, little stuff. Right? Right? So if Nisan, which is the Chodesh HaGula, is Chodesh HaAviv, what does that mean? Spring. Little Av. Little Av. Av was always meant to be, make Nisan look small by comparison, right? And that was always supposed to be the mazel of the month of Av. Imagine if, when the Meraglim came back, Am Yisrael wouldn't have bought their story. They would have stuck with Kalev and Yoshua. On Tisha B'Av, they would have gone into Eretz Yisrael. It was always by design meant to be the biggest Yom Tov, right? So they say seeing is believing, but there's some things, right, that are either too big or too small to see. Right? So there's, and that's the inyan of, the Maharal explains why Olam Haba is not mentioned in Torah Shebachsav. Olam Haba, which is the Tachlis, the ultimate, it's only spoken about in the Torah SheBaal Peh. Right? Because seeing is great, and there's no greater clarity than seeing, but there's some things that are too good, right? That they're just not in line of sight. Kol Neviim lo nisnabru ela liyemos HaMashiach ava olam haba ayin lo rasa elokim zu asecha. Neviim, their nevuah can only reach as far as Mashiach, but olam haba only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could see it. But things that you can't see, you could figure out, right? Like no one's ever seen an atom, right? But the mind dictates that there must be such a thing, right? The Or HaGonus can't be seen. Too good to be seen. It's not Roy. And it'll only be able to be visible, Lasid Lavo, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal Olam Haba, Lasid Lavo, right? But when you're stuck in darkness, right, you manage with your ears. So it's an amazing thing. There's a duality. On the one hand, it's when you're B'machashakim Hoshivani Kimesei Olam, Gemara says in the Sanhedrin, Zeh Talmuda Shel Bavli. It's a pasuk in Eicha. HaKadosh will put me in darkness like those. That's Talmud Bavli, right? Because that's why the Gemara has to be so much, so much pilpul, because it's like a blind man groping, right? Because you got to double check yourself, because you don't really see the truth. We don't have the clarity, because when there was a base of Mikdash on earth, it's liros, it's Pnei Adon Hashem. Being in Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Asher Eini Hashem Elokecha Ba, right? And being in Golus is like being in darkness. You get around with your ears, your signal, and that's what all the pilpul is necessary, because we know we don't see the truth, and that's why we have to try this way, and we got to eliminate all other possibilities, and that's why when the Gemara brings a raya, what does it say? Ta Shma, right? Come here, right? But and that's of course because of that, as the pasuk says, Avad Navi, right? Right, Avad Navi we call him Beis Hashem. It's a proxy lashon of pasuk. We don't have Nevi'im anymore. Gam Nevi'ah lo matzu chazon. We're in darkness. Mashaki kumesei olam. And as a countermeasure to that, we have to work with the Torah SheBaal Peh. But those muscles that we're building up, right, in Golus, right, the intellectual kalim to manage in the darkness. That's also what builds up our capacity. It makes us ready for Lasilo, because the Or HaGonus is hidden. It's too big and too bright to see, right? The Or HaGonus can't be seen currently, right? It could only be heard. And when you could hear it, hear about it. Right now we're only hearing about it. But when we build up those muscles, those intellectual kalim of coping with the darkness, those are the intellectual kalim that when Tisha B'Av goes back to, and Chodesh Av goes back to its innate goodness, that it's Shmiya, because it's connected to the Or HaGonus, that you can't see, you can only hear about it. La'asilava, when that happens, we will have the capacity to see the light because of how we built up the kalim by coping with the darkness.